running a little bit late to get to my pizza delivery job, but the mailman came early. I'm taking Kate's Pathfinder. I still don't have to eat in the BMW. I gotta do the heater blower motor. I've got one purchased, just hasn't showed up. Bought one on eBay. But anyway, so the mailman was running early today, and so I got 2 packages, and I'm pretty sure one of them, hold on, let's look. Yep, there we go. Cool beans. Let's open her up. First, I'm gonna drive a ways here. Truck's warming up. This is Lee Speedway. They're also affiliated with Hudson Speedway, where I raced my Ford Focus Enduro car last fall. We're on 125, heading towards Epping. Epping is the home of New England Dragway. So it's kind of if you're into cars, motorsports, and all that kind of stuff, this is a good neck of the wood to be in. As a matter of fact, before I moved into this area, 25, 30 years ago, when I first became aware of New England Dragway, that was really the only reason I had to come up here. The racetracks. There's also Star Speedway, Epping on the Brentwood line. It's another one I used to race, the Halloween Howler down there. Anyway, I'm just driving a bit here. We'll pull off somewhere good to open up this package real quick. This used to be a whole big forest right here. It got chopped up, and apparently we need more commercial space and more strip malls. I don't know. I don't think so, but that's just the way it's going over here. Anyway, I'm going to pull off to take out the rest of these. I do appreciate you wrapping these nice, so they arrive nice and safe. Look at that. There's the hauler. The Lancia Gulf Racing is next, which is awesome. I get something Gulf themed coming soon that is next level. Even though this thing is not a real truck, even though it's sort of a fantasy casting, I actually really like it, and it is very close to what would have existed in the 70s. Like it's at least believable that this is a racing hauler. And we've got the Type 37, the Lancia, with the insane supercharged and turbocharged engine and a cut down. Sort of basically the Delta still in a way, but as sold as the Scorpio in a very, very dumbed down, cheap, stupid version in America that shared almost nothing with the real deal. But that's the real deal. This is the one that got Group B canceled because the car was so insanely dangerous. It was crazy fast, and it was winning against Audi even though it didn't have all-wheel drive. But it was just such a dangerous setup. There was nowhere to put the fuel tank, and so they just shoved it under the driver and navigator seat there. And I shouldn't laugh, it's terrible, but Group B rally racing ended in 1986 when this exact car, in slightly different livery, went off a cliff, smashed into a bunch of trees. And you know how in Hollywood cars always explode when they crash? But in reality, that doesn't normally happen. It's very rare that a car crash causes an instant explosion. Well, the Lancia Type 037 rally car was one of those cars. It turned into a fireball If you haven't seen it, look it up on YouTube. It's pretty wild. Thank you very much, Mo. Everything arrived perfectly safe. Very happy with... I wanted an extra one of these for a while now. That's going to go live in my parents' house. I have my collection over there that's mostly just my childhood stuff. But if there's something I'm really, really into and I really love it, I try to get an extra one to also put it there. That way it's kind of everything from my childhood, and then the best of every year. A few pieces go there. You know, when I say few, you know, sometimes 30, sometimes 200 end up over there. You know, adding on to that collection. Here's another little fun fact. So this is the Porsche 917K. This is a car that, again, there's a lot of really awesome YouTube videos on this. You should check out. The Haggerty one is pretty awesome. There's a few good ones. But this car absolutely dominated racing for a few years there. It was the first real major victory for Porsche at the 24-hour Le Mans. They didn't just win it, they rewrote the rule book, basically. So the Ferrari with the 12-cylinder, the flat 12s, you know, the 512, 512LM, 512M, all those cars, those only exist because of this Porsche. This car was so dominant. One single person could pick up the entire tube chassis of this car. You can just pick it up and hold it, you know, just one person could just hold it. Because the tube chassis was so lightweight, and there's all these crazy... There was all these theories about how they stored gasoline within the tube chassis and all kinds of conspiracies. The one thing that is true was that they pressurized the tube chassis. It was so incredibly lightweight, just barely enough structure there to hold the car together on some of these nasty corners that they were throwing the cars around in. That the pressurization process meant that the driver would have a gauge, and if a crack developed within the tube chassis, all the nitrogen would obviously be, you know, expelled, and then that way they would know that you can't take a corner very hard because the car is about to fall apart, basically. There's that famous line where they talk about these cars in the Mulsanne Straight back in the day. They weren't putting their seatbelts on. So this is the last of the era where they would line up all along the starting grid, and the cars would be parked on the other side, angled towards the racetrack, and they would shoot a starter's pistol, and every driver would run to his car, start the vehicle, and fly off. So two major things resulted because of this for Porsche. So first of all, Porsches have their ignition on the left-hand side so that you can do the shifter with your right hand. You can be putting it into first gear as you start the engine with your left hand. To this day, Porsches have the ignitions on the left because of that particular, you know, racing development. And also, a part of what made it so dangerous, and we're actually very lucky we didn't lose some of the great race car drivers back in those days, is they did not put their seatbelt on until after they were already headed down the straightaway and wide open throttling these cars, and they kind of had a moment to not have to steer. And so in the straightaway, right as they're wide open throttling these things, you know, imagine that. I mean, late 60s, early 70s, 1,000 horsepower from a flat 12 in a tube chassis. This car weighs as much as a Miata, but it's got 10 times the power. And it's flying down with the turbocharger spooling, and the drivers are just now starting to click their seatbelts on. I mean, it's like, you can't even make this up. It's wild. The idea that racing like that would ever happen nowadays, it's never going to be repeated, this era of racing. And these cars are iconic. You can go anywhere in the world. You can go to Africa, you can go to South America, you can go to a poor country where they barely have any vehicles. And if you show them this shape, they've seen it. This is a Porsche 917, those crazy, wild, aerodynamic, you know, they look totally different in the first few iterations. They had that sort of teardrop back, not the cam back. And this evolution was actually pivotal in its success, because it turns out this works way better than having this long flowing, you know, I mean, it depends on the racetrack of towers as well. But anyway, here's my crazy little story time for the day. Thanks again, Mo. Love these. They're kind of on my radar for things I like to pick up. I used to not be big into this Jaguar. Honestly, it's really grown on me, especially since they debuted that hideous pink air conditioning unit junk pile recently. That is definitely, the lightweight E-Type was a beautiful car. It's just I prefer the regular production, you know, fastback clamshell sort of hatchback version of the E-Type. Enzo Ferrari said it was the most beautiful car ever made, which I think is funny. All right, hope everybody has a good weekend.